And yes, we're going to be talking about the Seditious Six a little bit more this morning. And yes, I'm getting tired of talking about these people too. But the fact of the matter is, they're still relevant, and there are some new developments that we need to discuss. So, first, a little housekeeping. Yeah, no show yesterday. Sorry, guys. The internet was down, and I'll be frank with you what happened. The internet came back up about 5 minutes before we would normally have gone live. And having already spoken with my service provider yesterday morning, they said it was going to be down for a while, so I was not prepared for a show. So even though the internet came back on with about 5 minutes to spare, I said, no, I'm not going to phone it in and give you guys a crap show. It went wrong. And Aaron is mic check. Okay, good call, Aaron Olson. Thanks for keeping me sharp there. All right, so the Seditious Six. Guys, the reason we're talking about this again is because just in the last day, there has been a significant development. And I want to make sure that everybody understands how this is connected. Okay, so the big thing that just happened is there was an article from the Washington Post that accused Pete Hegseth of war crimes, and they made a very specific allegation. And this is something we've talked about in the past, over the past weeks, relative to the Seditious Six video, is they didn't make any specific allegation. They were saying, oh, well, we're just reminding the troops that they don't have to follow illegal orders. Excuse me. We're just reminding the soldiers that they don't have to follow illegal orders, that they have a duty to refuse illegal orders. God. Okay. I gotta slow down. Hiccups, man. Sorry about that. And that's all cute. Oh, we're just reminding them. And as we've explained on the show, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this morning, but I've pointed out, I've pulled up the UCMJ on following illegal orders and explained the importance, the heavy lifting that is being done by the word manifestly in that statute. It has to be manifestly illegal orders, right? So essentially, when you find yourself in front of the courts martial after having refused an order, and you're trying to make the argument that you were refusing the order because the order was illegal. If the order wasn't something along the lines of, hey, soldier, I want you to murder this person because I want them dead, right? Then you're not going to get anywhere with that. Because 99 times out of 100, when you're given an order, there is stuff in the background you don't know. And war is a messy, messy thing, right? So I want to start with a basic, I got a timeline for you. We're going to take a quick peek at this. Okay, and it's doing the thing. Guys, you're about to lose me for a second, but I'll be right back. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that that's happening because of the internet outage from yesterday and stuff hadn't caught back up to where it's supposed to be yet. But that should get us back over to, where were we? The timeline. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, early 2025, early this year, you've got Rep. Adam Smith says National Guard deployments lacked clear legal footing. He didn't say that there were illegal orders. He didn't explicitly make a claim of explicit illegality. He said they may lack clear legal footing. And then you've got Alyssa Slotkin claims officers' reports on border action. What? Okay, there's a little bit of fuckery in the slide there, but in February, Slotkin made claims about the legality of the deployment of border actions in places like Los Angeles. Y'all remember the LA riot, the 2025 LA riots, the new LA riots. You've got Barry McCaffrey says there are constitutional concerns that should be addressed in House hearings. Tammy Duckworth says troop deployments feel like they push the borders of the rules, right? So you got a lot of this squishy language. It feels illegal. It seems illegal, right? So, for a little bit of we'll nail these down a little bit harder. Rep Smith said he fears Trump will use military as his personal police force, right? And this is back in June. Top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith, said he fears President Trump wants to use the U.S. military as personal police force. That's very much using the squishy language to not actually make an explicit accusation. So let me take you, build you a pattern, help you understand how this works. I'll take you back to the whole Russiagate thing, right? We kept hearing the term collusion. Trump colluded with Russia. He was in collusion with Putin. They kept using that word collusion, and they chose that word for a very important reason. We've discussed this many times in the past, but let me summarize and bring it back around for you. They used the word collusion and not the word conspired. This was carefully calculated and considered, because when you make an explicit, actual criminal allegation, at the barest minimum, you open yourself up to civil liability on grounds of libel and slander, right? When you suggest that someone was doing something untoward without making an explicit legal claim, you have some political and legal cover if a lawsuit arises, right? And without using the explicit language of conspiracy, as in the specific U.S. federal statute criminalizing a conspiracy to defraud the American people, right? Conspiracy, right? Seditious conspiracy, like many of the J6ers were charged with. Conspiracy to commit a crime is a crime, right? If you're a hot young thing that married yourself a multi-billionaire in his 80s and you hire an assassin to jump out and shout boo so he has a heart attack, then you get charged, you get caught, you get charged with conspiracy to commit murder. And you're treated essentially as if you personally committed the murder, which in effect you did. There's a reason that they're careful with language there, guys. There's an important reason they're careful with language there. So you've got Adam Smith, and what an absolute tragedy that he shares a name with one of America's greatest founding influences. President Trump wants this confrontation partially because he wants to emphasize the issue of immigration enforcement, Smith told Morning Edition, but more, I fear, because he wants to politicize the U.S. military and legitimize using it as a law enforcement tool, which is incredibly dangerous. All of this is a lie, right? Then we move on to Slotkin, right? And you should recognize that name because she's one of the what the hell? You should recognize that name because she's one of the Seditious Six. Slotkin knows border security is a problem, but won't buck party to protect Michiganders. Grand Rapids, Michigan, while Alyssa Slotkin attempts to defend the Biden-Harris administration's failed border policies, AFP Action is highlighting the Congresswoman's own failures to secure the border and protect Michiganders. Right. This article is from a little over a year ago. So while she was still while Biden was still in office. So she voted against the Secure the Border Act of 2023, and she dismissed the effort to strengthen the nation's border security as merely political action on the part of the president, which is clearly not the case. Trump tells us that, Slotkin and two other Democrats introduced a bill last week requiring Immigration and Customs Enforcement to identify themselves and unmask during immigration enforcement actions. And there's a very good argument to be made that our ICE agents wearing masks during enforcement actions is necessary operational security, because there have been active maneuvers to dox ICE agents, and we've seen multiple left-wing terror groups conduct coordinated, complex ambush attacks on ICE groups, right? That's not even in question. We've seen it happen. Then you've got the deliberate political theater. Retired four-star general scoffs at Trump's handling of LA protests. Let me tell you something about generals. Okay, the first thing you need to know about every single general is they are an officer, a commissioned officer in the United States military. And the first thing you need to understand about officers is the entire military would be better off with the absence of every single one of them. The officer corps represents a bureaucratic administrative mechanism that does nothing but hinder the efficient operation of the U.S. military mission. If you were to eliminate the officer corps and run nothing but sergeants major running brigades and battalions with first sergeants at the battalion and below level, and of course, SFCs at the platoon and staff sergeants at the, and below. Eliminate the officer corps, and you would essentially clean the military and turn it into an actual efficient military fighting force. Right? The other thing you need to know about generals: one can rise through the ranks on merit, perhaps to the rank of colonel. There's a lot of politicking that goes on in officer circles, certainly, but there is still some merit there. Once you get to brigadier general, that's a 1-star. In order to get there, you need a secret handshake. Once you're talking about general officers, you are into pure politics. And we would be better off without all of them. Because everywhere that you see pure politics, you will find bias for communism. That's why you had General Milley committing treason against the United States of America by leaking intelligence to the Chinese during Trump's first administration. It really is that simple. Sergeant Major says all members of Congress should be U.S. born and serve in military or civilian capacity of Department of War before being sworn in. I agree. I'd be deeply comfortable with that. At a minimum, you should be U.S. born, right? There should be no Ilhan Omar nonsense. There should be no Mamdani nonsense. If you weren't born in the United States of America, you have no business being elected to politics in the United States of America. And when I say that, okay, this is off topic, but when I say that, let me really drive this home. You can move from a foreign country to the US, to Canada, to Australia, to Great Britain, France, Germany, right? You'll notice all those countries have something in common. They're primarily white, Western civilization countries. You can move to any of those countries from any foreign country, pursue citizenship, and pursue high elected office. Only those countries. White boy can't grow up in Pittsburgh, immigrate to Pakistan, and run for office. It is against the law in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, right? All over Africa, India, in the vast majority, if not all, non-white, non-Western cultures, it is illegal, it is prohibited. In order to run for high office in any of those countries, you have to be born. You have to be born in the country. And in many of them, like Pakistan, they have what they call blood right. So like if your parents immigrate from Pakistan to America, right, become citizens, you're born in America, an American citizen, and then you have a kid. So now your kid is third generation American. Under Pakistani law, they have what's called blood right, which means that because they're Pakistani, they can choose to re-immigrate to Pakistan and become a citizen as if they were born there, right? And that is in part because culturally they maintain the cultural traditions. And those cultural traditions, by the way, include the Death to America slogan. Sanders says, my former brother-in-law was made interim commandant of the Marine Corps while Eric Smith was on medical leave. Then he retired and now works in the private sector, not the media. I'm not sure quite what point you're getting at there, Alex, but I'm gonna drive back into the original conversation. Sergeant Major says generals, and this, I'll tell you what, this is a man who knows, spend the last 2/3 of their careers trying to get promoted. Yeah, it's kind of like with politicians generally. What does a politician do for a living? Right? What is your congressional representative? What does your senator do for a living? Oh, well, they serve the people. They write law. No, they run for re-election. That's their entire profession. That's all they do. If they appear to be signing a piece of legislation, if they appear to be sponsoring a bill, what they're doing is they're trying to convince people to vote for them again. Literally, their only motivation is re-election, right? So back to the timeline. We have all this soft language going on, slowly introducing the very gentle idea of, well, this feels illegal, right? Okay, Alex, meaning they're not all out there self-promoting to try and damage Trump. Okay, Alex, brother, you're better than this not all thing, okay? Women are weaker than men. Not all, okay, sure. I'm sure you could point to 2 or 3 examples. We speak in generalities because it's efficient. I know you know this. I know you're better than that, brother. Where was I? Okay, so you've got they're leaking out all the soft language. It feels illegal. It seems illegal. Blah blah blah, and then you get the launch of notwhatyoussignedup.org. Notwhatyoussignedup.org. You saw the billboard. You have questions. You're not alone. But first, here are proactive steps that you can take to reduce the risk. Oh. Be sure to access resources from a personal device, not a military or government computer, email account, phone, or Wi-Fi network. Yeah, they might as well have just said, go buy a burner phone and a burner laptop or go to the library. Use an encrypted Proton Mail email account. Use the Signal app for encrypted texts and calls. Use a VPN, a virtual private network like NordVPN, right? Support resources for service members. About Face, an organization of service members and veterans that connects service members who have legal or moral questions about their mission with peer counseling, legal support, and other resources. Provides counseling for service members on their legal rights and discharge options, including conscientious objector status. Oh, provides the National Lawyers Guild Military Law Task Force. No, Pitt Danny, this is not shut down. This is active right now. Provides legal information and advice to service members, including guidance on refusing illegal orders, dissent, discharges, and other military law issues. Now, this one right here, the National Lawyers Guild Military Law Task Force, I'll have to check it out and double check that that's actually related to the National Lawyers Guild. But make no mistake, the National Lawyers Guild is an organization that exists explicitly to provide cover for leftists. We've talked about the guys with the I think it's red helmets or orange helmets that show up at Antifa protests, and they say that they're there as neutral legal observers. They're not. What they're there for is they're there to lie about what happened. They're there to lie on behalf of criminals. They're there to run cover for Antifa thugs conducting legitimate terrorist attacks on U.S. military and federal installations. Right now, so they launched this thing. Like I just showed you, the not what you signed up for.org. Let's be clear. This was launched by a group called When Without War. When Without War has been around since 2002. And basically what When Without War is they are a radical leftist organization. They're very pro-China. And they have been conducting, organizing, funding groups against the U.S. interests. They wrap themselves in the flag of pacifism and, we just prefer diplomacy to, and your diplomacy is free trade, no U.S. tariffs. No, it's cool. China can tariff us 400% if they want to. No, but the U.S. doesn't get to use tariffs. Just all about that absolute garbage. Hold on just a second. Yeah. That heater's getting a little warm on the back of my calves now. Koskiu Villain says that Putin said 95% of worldwide terror attacks are committed by CIA. You know, I ain't gonna lie, brother. There's part of me that does not find that claim difficult to accept. Because I am extremely skeptical of certain parts of our intelligence apparatus. But having worked in the intelligence apparatus myself, having been a member of U.S. clandestine services, I can tell you it's not all pure mustache twirling evil. So this article from Breitbart.com: billboards urge National Guardsmen to refuse orders from Trump admin. Now, let me go back real quick to the timeline and remind you, the launch of notwhatyoussignedup.org was September 9th, right? That was on September 9th. Let me close some of these articles real quick so I don't have to keep thinking so hard about which one to open next. Left-wing group is putting up billboards in high-crime cities where President Donald Trump deployed the National Guard, telling military service members that it's not what they signed up for and encouraging them to refuse, quote-unquote, unlawful orders, right? When Without War, a self-described diverse network of activists and national organizations working for progressive foreign policy. And like I showed you, the National Lawyers Guild is part of this organization. And that's, hard left. Launched the billboard campaign in September in Washington, D.C. before expanding Chicago, Memphis, and the military bases Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. One of the billboards asks, did you go airborne just to pull security for ICE? Yes. If those are the orders that you have, then yes. Believe it or not, when you raise your hand, you say that I promise to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, Sergeant Major, I love this. Sergeant Major says, I like this website. Get the cowards out of my army. You know what? I couldn't agree more with that. I think that the NSA, I think some of our good spook operators should be hacking the shit out of this website and identifying these traitors and eliminating them, remove them from the military, because all's fair in love and war. As we move forward, we're going to talk about the triage of this a little bit, and you kind of got me ahead. You kind of got me out ahead of my skis here, old man, because the case that I'm about to make is that the Democrats are seeking to threaten our soldiers and coerce them into taking ill-advised actions by laying out a major threat. I'll come back to that triage in just a minute, but with regard to what Sergeant Major just said about get the cowards out of my army, just because the Democrats do something, just because the left does something, doesn't mean that we ignore the weapons of the enemy. That's one of the great mistakes that we've made. Donald Trump is constantly accused of targeting his political enemies. But the fact is, we saw the Democrats conduct absolutely illegitimate lawfare against Donald Trump throughout the entirety of the 2024 campaign. And the record is clear. Democrats will use illegitimate claims, unfounded accusations, and absolutely lawless maneuvers. They will, in fact, change laws in order to suit themselves. Right? And we don't just have to look at the McMichaels case where the judge instructed the jury to ignore the law on citizen's arrest. And then the state of Georgia went back and changed the law on citizen's arrest because they needed to hang two white boys over the death of a black criminal who was supported by BLM with their terror campaign against prosecutors who found legitimate self-defense as the outcome from that altercation. No, we can go all the way to Trump and E. Jean Carroll, where the state of New York literally created a 1-year, essentially, amnesty period for people to pursue cases of the sexual nature, even if they were long beyond the statute of limitations. Because remember, she never actually accused him of directly. I'm sorry. E. Jean Carroll did say that he raped her. The prosecutors said that he sexually assaulted her. The jury said that there's no credible evidence that any of that happened. Trump was acquitted. He said on Twitter that he was acquitted. And then whenever you hear them say you never hear him say he was found guilty of rape or he was found guilty. No, you always hear them say he was found liable. He was found liable of sexual assault. When the fact is, what he was found liable of is he was found liable of libeling, slandering E. Jean Carroll over the statement, "They found me innocent." Right? We saw this we saw it again in 2020 and 2021 when the U.S. military discharged thousands of service members over refusing the absolutely unconstitutional and illegitimate vaccine mandate. We saw it with the multiple prosecutions of Donald Trump. We saw it with the incarceration of Trump supporters through January 6th, the ridiculous charges of seditious conspiracy. The Democrats have made it very, very clear that while the Republican Party does not have a history of using lawfare and just making shit up to charge Democrats with. And not only do they not do that, but the Republican Party has a troubling history of turning on their own Whereas the Democrats are exactly the opposite. The Democrats will make shit up. They will falsify records. They'll issue illegal, illegitimate, unfounded FISA warrants. They will conduct midnight raids. Right? If a Democrat says they want to murder Donald Trump, then they might get criticized in the media for it. And well, you shouldn't say that out loud type of stuff. But if a Republican who can't even get his fat ass out of his wheelchair says that he thinks Joe Biden ought to die, then the Biden administration will send the FBI to your house to murder you in your sleep. The message is clear. The Democrats are more than happy to weaponize government authority and political power and go so far as to murder Americans in their homes for political gain, while the Republicans are not even willing to pursue legitimate criminal charges against people who do things like a conspiracy to defraud the American people by creating an entirely fictitious narrative about Russian collusion. And so what the Seditious Six are trying to set up, what they are clearly in a coordinated effort to achieve, is to make it clear to our troops, hey, soldier, just a reminder, you are always just one election from a Democrat taking office and deciding that, for whatever reason, deciding that a post that says I voted for Donald Trump is sufficient to associate you with an undesirable element, and we can use that as grounds for a dishonorable discharge, which means we can eliminate you from the voter pool. We can eliminate you from the voter base. We can shore up our communist control of the U.S. military. And if you're not on board, if we ever suspect that you're not on board 100% for the total consolidation of U.S. military power into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party in collusion with the Democrats of the United States, then we will ruin your life. We will take you away from the voting base and we'll put you out of the military. And they want this message to be clear because the thing they're looking for is they're already radicalized sociopath leftists who have managed to get past the screening process and become enlisted. They want 19, 20-year-old privates with, who use Kool-Aid to dye their hair when they're out of uniform and clip on that septum ring when they're not wearing my flag on their shoulder. They want these guys to throw Molotov cocktails into barracks rooms and day rooms and murder soldiers. They're looking for a mass casualty event on a PT field. Right? They're looking for Molotov cocktails at parade rest. They're looking for a change of responsibility ceremony to be interrupted with an improvised explosive device placed by one of our own soldiers. And I don't have to speculate on this. I don't have to speculate and grasp at straws to make the case that the left is interested in deteriorating our U.S. military might. I don't have to think real hard and go grasping at straws to make something up. There's a clear pattern of evidence. Under the Obama administration especially, he intentionally expended and lowered the level of the U.S. military arsenal. He destroyed and got rid of weapons. Under the Biden administration, you had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which there's a lot to criticize there. But in this context, the thing that's most worth pointing out is we left a whole damn war worth of high quality U.S. military equipment. We just handed it to the enemies of the United States of America. That sounds a hell of a lot like providing aid to the enemies of the United States of America, if you ask me. Also, under the Biden administration, there was a massive ramp up in the introduction of bizarre sexual proclivity and transgender ideology and all of that just anti-science nonsense that was imported into the U.S. military, going so far as to infect the highest levels of rank with dudes that think they're women and vice versa. Danny, yeah, it was planned to feature, not a bug, right? And then after all that setup, you get the Seditious Six video. And these guys come out to say, oh, well, we just want to remind you that you need to refuse illegal orders. And then, we even get Slotkin in an interview saying, well, okay, look, we can't, there's nothing in particular. There's no illegal order that we can point to. We just thought it was important to remind the soldiers. You're a liar. You're a whore and a liar. You're a whore and a liar. Yeah, that's all there is to it. Oh, and now we've got this nonsense coming out of WAPO where they're saying that Pete Hegseth gave orders to kill 2 survivors who were floating around after a strike on one of the Venezuelan drug boats. And they're floating the idea, oh, well, that's a war crime. Striking the survivors after a strike, that's a war crime. Couple things. That is only true in a very specific, narrow set of circumstances which do not meet the criteria for this conversation. It is not a reasonable position to take that you should leave survivors after a military strike so that they can go and refit and come back. When you destroy the enemy, you should destroy him entirely. That's not a legal position. That is my moral philosophy. An enemy who survives continues to be a threat. Right? When you must prosecute a threat, the threat continues so long as it exists. Right? We don't do warning shots. That's just another threat. And then finally, on what evidence? On what evidence are they making the claim that Hegseth said, I want you to go and murder those 2 people for me? Because there's no evidence. WAPO cites some anonymous sources. Okay, gotcha. Now, it's also telling that they're referencing a strike that was over a month ago, as in that happened before the Seditious Six video, but after the launch of notwhatyousiguedupfor.org. Really? That's awfully, awfully convenient timing. Well, that article, of course, has been debunked by, no shit, the New York Times. To everyone's astonishment, the New York Times came out with the debunk. It says, Hegseth ordered a lethal boat strike, but not the killing of survivors, officials say. Amid talk of war crimes, the details of the precise sequence of a September 2 attack on a boat in the Caribbean are facing intensifying scrutiny. I'm sorry. September 2. So that's actually right before not what you signed up for.org launched. The suggestion that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth or his officials targeted shipwreck survivors has been galvanizing because that would apparently be a war crime, even if one accepts Trump officials' border argument for the strike campaign. Credit Kenny Holston, blah, blah, blah. The Trump administration on Monday defended the legality of a September 2nd attack on a boat in the Caribbean Sea as calls grew in Congress to examine whether a follow-up missile strike that killed survivors amounted to a crime. The lethal attack was the first of President Trump's legally disputed campaign. This right here, fuck you. Legally disputed campaign of killing people suspected of smuggling drugs. Okay. Entering the United States without authorization is a crime. Bringing drugs into the United States is a crime. And as I've pointed out many, many times, it is not a state crime or a federal crime. It is an act of war. I don't care if you're abuelita with the best fucking tortillas that can be made in a molcajete. When you cross the border without going through a legitimate entry point, what you are is you are a dangerous, hostile element of a rogue foreign nation conducting an invasion into the United States of America. You are conducting an act of war. I don't care if you're 1 or 100. When you cross the border illegally, you are part of an invading force, which the law and the Constitution say should be repelled with ultimate force. So, there is no question of the legality of lethal strikes on foreign boats entering the U.S. The only question is whether they are engaged in piracy or engaged in invasion. Yeah, this is something that not everybody knows. If you are out in international waters in your big pretty yacht and you fly the Jolly Roger because you think it's cute and funny, you know, the skull and crossbones, black flag, white skull, crossbones, or any version of the pirate flag, it's not just the traditional Jolly Roger. There's a whole bunch of different ones that represent different pirate groups. That is a real good way to get the Coast Guard to sink your, or the Navy, to sink your shit without asking questions. And I mean, even today, don't ever forget, we have a Navy. The United States of America has a Navy specifically in origin to respond to Muslim pirates. Right, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. That was the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps killing pirates, and they still do a lot of that today. I was actually asked to go. I was asked to go overseas and as a contractor after I got out of the Army to do a contract mission. It was good money, and I really wanted to go, but my wife didn't want me to leave for another 6 months or a year. But I got a phone call from a buddy. Hey, Lowry, you want to go hunt Somali pirates? Like, fuck yeah, I'm fuck yeah. Well, let me ask my wife. I left her alone not too long ago for a year while I went to hunt terrorists in Afghanistan. Let me check with her. And she said, no, you are not leaving me with these kids again. No. I said, yes, ma'am. Probably worked out for the best. I didn't get blown up in Somalia. I got blown up enough times in Afghanistan. I don't need to get blown up anymore. But so yeah, we've got the timeline. The Hegseth accusations have been totally debunked, and it really is this simple. They started with the soft language, then they set up they set up the instruction manual for communication. Then they launched the kind of coded message with the Seditious Six video. There's clear coordination going on here between the Seditious Six, the Win Without Wars organization, and the left-wing media. They are engaged in a coordinated campaign, a conspiracy, not just to defraud the American people, but specifically to attack the good order and conduct of the U.S. military and demoralize our currently active troops. They are attempting to weaken the military of the United States of America. And when you can see a clear pattern from Obama downgrading the U.S. arsenal to Biden handing weapons to the enemy. Oh, let's not forget Fast and Furious, Biden administration with Eric Holder actively arming South American and Mexican drug cartels with U.S. manufactured firearms to include machine guns. Right? And then you've got this clear campaign to demoralize, destabilize, and factionalize the U.S. military. I would say it is unreasonable for there not to be an active investigation by the FBI, as far as that organization could be trusted, into these senators and congresspeople, their connections to notwhatyoussignedup.for.org and Win Without Wars. Right, Win Without Wars is a more than 20-year-old organization that's been conducting anti-American communist propaganda campaigns, essentially since 9/11. And the investigation should examine where that organization gets their funding, how much funding that organization is providing to the Seditious Six specifically, and more generally to Democrats overall. How that organization and these Democrats are connected to the Washington Post. We know that they are. We've seen the revolving door of incestuous promotion back and forth from political office to or just assistant staffers in political offices back to media organizations, back and forth between the two. It's a constant revolving door of incestuous fuckery. And really nail down where the original conspiracy originated. But to try and argue that there's not explicit coordination going on behind the scenes in this, I think is naive at best. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you this morning. Like I said at the top of the hour, I apologize for the little slip up yesterday. Just the service provider said it was routine maintenance, and it took my internet away. But thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.